The ocean glimmered like scattered diamonds as Quinn Xanders stood on the upper deck of his yacht, the Helios Dream, surveying his domain with a detached air of satisfaction. At 34, he had built Xanders Maritime from a modest shipping venture into a global logistics empire that handled everything from luxury cruise operations to international cargo transport. The 60-foot yacht beneath his feet wasn't even his largest vessel, merely the one he preferred for weekend escapes when Monaco's social scene became too stifling. "Mr. Xanders, we're approaching the cove now. Should we anchor here?" Captain Reeves called from the helm. Quinn nodded, his dark hair catching the Mediterranean breeze. "Perfect. I'll be working from the lower deck office today. I don't want any interruptions unless it's absolutely necessary." The staff knew better than to bother him during these solitary retreats. Quinn valued efficiency in all things, including his isolation. Relationships were messy, complicated affairs that inevitably became liabilities. His parents' bitter divorce when he was 12 had taught him that lesson early, and 15 years of building his business had only reinforced it. Bachelor life suited him perfectly. Clean, uncomplicated, he dated occasionally, always with women who understood that permanence wasn't on the table. The tabloids called him Maritime's most eligible bachelor, but Quinn had no intention of changing that status. He had his company, his freedom, and the peace of controlled solitude. As the yacht settled into position and the engines quieted, Quinn made his way down to his office. The weekend stretched before him: quarterly reports to review, acquisition proposals to consider, and blissful silence. He had no way of knowing that in less than 24 hours that carefully structured world would be completely upended. The first disruption came in the form of a call from his executive assistant, Melanie. "I wouldn't bother you if it wasn't important," she said apologetically. The Rossi delegation moved their site visit up. "They're expecting a tour of our Mediterranean operations tomorrow." Tomorrow? Quinn's jaw tightened. The Rossi Group represented a critical potential partnership for expanding Xanders Maritime's Italian presence. "That's impossible. I'm not even on the mainland." "They're insisting, sir. Something about Mr. Rossi's schedule changing unexpectedly." Quinn pinched the bridge of his nose. "Fine. Have them meet me at the Monaco Marina at noon. We'll use the yacht for the meeting. Already handled. And I've arranged for Zara Richardson to be there as well." "Who?" "Zara Richardson, our new director of Mediterranean operations. You approved her hire last month." Quinn vaguely recalled signing off on a personnel decision for the Monaco office. "Refresh my memory." "She's the logistics expert who revolutionized North African shipping routes for global transport. Harvard Business School, speaks 5 languages. You said her portfolio was adequate." Which, coming from Quinn, was high praise. "Fine. Have her meet the delegation at the marina. I'll be there." As Quinn hung up, a flicker of irritation passed through him. He valued his weekend solitude, and now he'd have to entertain clients. At least the yacht provided an impressive setting for business discussions. What he couldn't have anticipated was that this disruption would pale in comparison to the one awaiting him the next day. The following morning dawned clear and bright, the kind of pristine Mediterranean day that made Monaco a playground for the wealthy. Quinn had the captain position the yacht near the marina entrance, a strategic location that showcased both the vessel and the stunning coastline. At precisely noon, a sleek water taxi approached carrying what appeared to be the Italian delegation. Quinn straightened his tailored suit jacket and prepared to greet them with the practiced charm he reserved for important clients. As the water taxi pulled alongside the yacht, the first passengers began transferring to the boarding ladder. A distinguished older man, Rossi, presumably followed by two younger men in expensive suits, and then a woman in a navy blue dress who moved with confident grace. Quinn watched as she stepped onto the boarding ladder, noting with professional interest the way she handled herself. This must be Zara Richardson, the new operations director. His first impression was that she carried herself with the self-assured competence he demanded from his executives. His second impression never formed, because at that moment, a sharp crack split the air. The top rung of the boarding ladder snapped under her foot. In an instant, Quinn was moving. Without conscious thought, he lunged forward, reaching the side of the yacht just as Zara lost her balance. She fell backward, a brief look of shock crossing her features before Quinn caught her, one arm hooking around her waist while his other hand gripped the yacht's railing to stabilize them both. For a moment, they were frozen, her body pressed against his, her startled breath warm against his neck. Quinn felt something shift in that suspended moment, something fundamental and disorienting. "I've got you," he said, his voice rougher than intended. Her eyes met his, a striking shade of amber, and Quinn experienced the unfamiliar sensation of being caught off balance. "Thank you," she replied, quickly regaining her composure. "Nice reflexes, Mr. Xanders." He helped her safely onto the deck as the crew rushed to secure a new boarding ladder for the remaining guests. Only after ensuring she was steady did Quinn step back, an unexpected reluctance accompanying the movement. "Quinn Xanders," he introduced himself, extending his hand. "Zara Richardson," she confirmed, her handshake firm. "I'd say it's nice to finally meet you, but I hadn't planned on making quite this dramatic an entrance." A smile threatened at the corner of his mouth, another rarity. "We value efficiency at Xanders Maritime, Miss Richardson, but perhaps not at the cost of safety." "I'll keep that in mind," she replied with a wry smile that suggested she wasn't easily intimidated. "Though I have to say, your rescue response time was impressively efficient." As the Rossi delegation finished boarding and crew members fussed over the ladder incident, Quinn found himself studying Zara with unexpected interest. There was a sharpness to her gaze that suggested she missed nothing, and a confidence in her posture that didn't require arrogance to communicate competence. "Mr. Rossi is eager to discuss the Sicilian expansion," she said, smoothly transitioning to business. "I've prepared the operational forecasts you requested, along with alternative logistics models for consideration." Quinn nodded, impressed despite himself. "Let's not keep them waiting then." As they walked toward the main salon where the meeting would take place, Quinn became aware of an unfamiliar sensation, the lingering warmth where her body had pressed against his, and a subtle disruption to his usually ordered thoughts. He dismissed it immediately. He had a business to run and a partnership to secure. Whatever momentary distraction he'd experienced was irrelevant. Little did he know that catching Zara Richardson would be the first in a series of events that would challenge everything he believed about his carefully structured life. The meeting with the Rossi delegation proceeded smoothly, with Zara proving herself extraordinarily knowledgeable about Mediterranean shipping operations. Quinn found himself impressed by her ability to address the Italians' concerns with both technical precision and diplomatic finesse. Miss Richardson's proposal for the Palermo hub actually increases efficiency by 17% while reducing our carbon footprint, Quinn noted, building on her presentation. "It's exactly the kind of innovation we're bringing to this partnership." Antonio Rossi, the patriarch of the Italian shipping family, nodded approvingly. "Very impressive. Your new director seems to understand our local concerns quite well." "I lived in Sicily for 3 years," Zara explained. Working with independent fishermen taught me the importance of respecting local maritime traditions while implementing new systems. Quinn glanced at her with renewed interest. That detail hadn't been in her file, or if it had, he hadn't paid attention. He prided himself on thoroughly vetting all executive hires, but he now realized he delegated too much of her onboarding to HR. After 2 productive hours, the meeting concluded with handshakes and promises of contracts to follow. As the Rossi delegation prepared to depart, Quinn found himself standing beside Zara at the yacht's rail. "You handled that exceptionally well," he said, surprising himself with the directness of the compliment. "Thank you." She seemed equally surprised. "I've been studying the Rossi operation since I was hired. Their family approach to business requires a different touch than our typical corporate partnerships. You didn't mention your time in Sicily during your interview." Zara's eyebrow arched slightly. "With respect, Mr. Xanders, you weren't at my interview. I spoke with your HR director and the Mediterranean VP." Quinn felt an unexpected twinge of discomfort. She was right, of course. He'd reviewed her credentials but hadn't participated in the actual hiring process. Fair point. "Consider me interested now. Perhaps you could stay aboard for dinner and bring me up to speed on your vision for our Mediterranean operations." The invitation surprised them both. Quinn rarely extended such personal attention to new executives, preferring to maintain professional distance. Zara considered him for a moment before nodding. "I'd appreciate that opportunity." After the Rossi delegation departed, the yacht remained anchored in the bay. Quinn instructed the chef to prepare dinner for 2 in the aft deck dining area, then retreated to his office to review some contracts. But his concentration kept drifting. The memory of Zara in his arms, the brief, intense moment of connection when their eyes met, kept intruding on his thoughts. Quinn found himself wondering about her background, her journey to his company, in a way that went beyond professional curiosity. He pulled up her personnel file. Harvard Business School, as Melanie had mentioned. Before that, undergraduate work at Columbia in international relations and economics. Previous positions at Global Transport, and before that, a smaller logistics firm based in North Africa. Impressive credentials, certainly, but nothing that explained why she'd caught his attention so thoroughly. At 7, they reconvened for dinner. Zara had changed from her business attire into a simple white blouse and tailored pants that she must have had in her briefcase. Practical, Quinn thought appreciatively. She came prepared. "Your chef is excellent," she commented as they enjoyed the first course, a delicate seafood appetizer. "He should be, considering what I pay him," Quinn replied. "Though I suspect you're not easily impressed by luxury." "Your file mentions time spent working with local fishermen." Zara set down her fork. "After business school, I took a position with a small NGO helping Sicilian fishing villages modernize their distribution methods. Not exactly the career path my professors recommended, but it taught me more about real-world logistics than any corporate job could have." "Why the detour?" Quinn asked, genuinely curious. "My grandmother was Sicilian. She raised me after my parents died, and her stories about the coastal villages always fascinated me." A shadow crossed her face. "She passed away my final year at Harvard, and I wanted to connect with that part of my heritage." "I'm sorry about your grandmother," Quinn said, surprised by his own sincerity. Zara nodded acknowledgement. "What about you? The business press paints you as a maritime wunderkind who built an empire from scratch, but I suspect there's more to the story." Quinn rarely discussed his personal history, but something about her direct gaze prompted honesty. "My father was a harbor pilot in Boston. He loved the sea but hated that he couldn't control his schedule. When he and my mother divorced, He took me on his tugboat during his shifts. I learned the rhythm of shipping operations before I could drive. Quinn swirled the wine in his glass. When he died, I was 22 and just finishing college. I used his life insurance to buy my first cargo vessel and started running supplies between coastal cities. And built it into Xanders Maritime, Zara finished. Impressive. Though I notice your official bio mentions starting with modest capital investment rather than your father's insurance policy. Quinn's lips quirked. PR thought it sounded more distinguished. I prefer the truth, she said simply. It honors him more. The observation caught Quinn off guard. Few people in his world spoke so directly, and fewer still seemed to understand the complicated relationship he'd had with his father. As dinner progressed, their conversation moved from business to broader topics: the future of sustainable shipping, the cultural differences between Mediterranean and Atlantic operations, even their shared appreciation for classic maritime literature. "You're not what I expected, Miss Richardson," Quinn admitted as they finished dessert. "Zara, please, and what did you expect? Someone more?" He searched for the right word. Conventional, perhaps. Most executives who reach your level follow a predictable path. Like yours, she challenged with a smile. Taché. He found himself smiling back. Though buying a tugboat with insurance money isn't exactly conventional either. Perhaps that's why you hired me. You recognized a kindred spirit beneath the resume. The thought hadn't occurred to Quinn, but now it settled with an unexpected rightness. Perhaps some unconscious part of him had recognized something in her credentials that resonated with his own journey. As the evening drew to a close, Quinn realized he'd talked more about himself in those few hours than he had with anyone in years. Something about Zara drew out confidences he typically kept guarded. "I should get back to shore," she said eventually, glancing at her watch. "I have an early meeting at the Monaco office tomorrow." Quinn nodded, ignoring a peculiar reluctance to end their conversation. "I'll have the captain prepare the tender." As they walked toward the boarding area, now equipped with a thoroughly inspected ladder, Quinn found himself searching for a reason to continue their interaction. "I'll be reviewing the Mediterranean operations next week," he said. "Perhaps you could clear your schedule for a more comprehensive briefing." Zara looked at him with a hint of amusement, as if she saw through the transparent business pretext. "Of course, Mr. Xanders. My schedule is at your disposal." "Quinn," he corrected. "Given that I've shared my father's life insurance secrets, I think we can dispense with formalities." Her smile widened. "Quinn, then. I look forward to our next meeting." As the tender pulled away from the yacht, carrying Zara back to shore, Quinn remained at the railing, watching until the boat was just a distant point of light against Monaco's glittering coastline. He tried to analyze his unusual reaction to her, this disruption to his typically ordered thoughts. Professional respect, certainly. Intellectual appreciation for her capabilities. But there was something more, something that had sparked when he caught her falling from that broken ladder, something that felt dangerously like interest of a decidedly personal nature. Quinn turned away from the railing, determined to regain his equilibrium. He had built his success on rational decisions and emotional discipline. One compelling conversation with a new executive didn't change that. Yet as he prepared for bed that night, Quinn found himself looking forward to their next meeting with an anticipation he hadn't felt in years. And for the first time in recent memory, his dreams were not of shipping routes or profit margins, but of amber eyes and challenging smiles. The following week proved unusually frustrating for Quinn. Two major equipment failures at their Rotterdam facility demanded his immediate attention, forcing him to postpone his planned review of Mediterranean operations. The delay shouldn't have bothered him. Rescheduling meetings was a regular part of executive life, but he found himself unreasonably annoyed by the circumstances. "Just call her," Melanie suggested when Quinn irritably rescheduled for the third time. "Call who?" he asked sharply. "Miss Richardson. You've asked about her availability 4 times this week. Whatever this meeting is, it seems important to you." Quinn frowned. Was he being that transparent? "It's a standard operational review, nothing urgent." Melanie just gave him a look that bordered on insubordination but said nothing further. When he finally returned to Monaco, 10 days later, Quinn found the Mediterranean office running with surprising efficiency. Zara had implemented several procedural changes that had already increased throughput at their key ports. "Miss Richardson is in the conference room," his assistant informed him when he arrived. "She's prepared a complete presentation on the first quarter operations." Quinn nodded, suddenly aware that he'd spent more time thinking about this meeting than was professionally warranted. He straightened his tie and walked to the conference room with measured steps. Zara looked up when he entered, her professional smile warming slightly at the edges. "Quinn, welcome back. I hope Rotterdam is sorted out, eventually." He set his briefcase down. "Your changes here seem to be yielding results already. Nothing dramatic, just eliminating redundancies and better aligning shift schedules with port traffic patterns." She gestured to the presentation materials. "Shall we begin? I know your time is valuable." For the next 2 hours, Zara walked him through her analysis of Mediterranean operations, her proposed changes, and preliminary results. Her approach was methodical but innovative, identifying inefficiencies that had been overlooked for years. "This is excellent work," Quinn said when she concluded, "particularly the Marseille restructuring. Thank you. It's easier to see these patterns when you're new to a system." She gathered her materials with efficient movements. "I understand you're only in Monaco for 2 days. Is there anything else you need from me while you're here?" Quinn hesitated. The professional part of the meeting was clearly concluded, but he found himself reluctant to end their interaction. "Actually, I was hoping you might join me for dinner again. There's a restaurant in the old town I think you'd appreciate." Zara's hand stilled on her papers. "Is this a business dinner, Quinn?" The directness of her question caught him off guard. "Does it matter?" "It does to me." She met his gaze steadily. "I value clarity." Quinn realized he was at a crossroads. He could retreat to the safety of professional pretense or acknowledge the truth that his interest in Zara Richardson had evolved beyond business. "Not business," he said finally. "Just dinner. Between 2 people who find each other's company interesting." A smile slowly spread across her face. "In that case, I accept. Though I should warn you, I have strong opinions about restaurants that serve frozen seafood while overlooking the Mediterranean." "Duly noted. This place catches their fish daily. Even better." That evening, Quinn found himself unusually concerned with details that normally wouldn't warrant his attention: which tie to wear, whether to have the car service pick her up or meet at the restaurant. He finally settled on sending his driver for her while he secured their table. Le Poisson Bleu was an unassuming establishment tucked into Monaco's old quarter, far from the glitz of the main tourist areas. The owner, Henry, greeted Quinn warmly. "Mr. Xanders, always a pleasure. Your usual table is ready." "Thank you, Henry. I'm expecting a guest." "Of course." The older man's eyes twinkled knowingly, but he said nothing more as he led Quinn to a secluded corner table with a view of both the harbor and the old town's twinkling lights. When Zara arrived, Quinn found himself standing instinctively. She wore a simple emerald dress that complemented her auburn hair, which fell in loose waves around her shoulders instead of the professional updo she favored at work. "You look beautiful," he said before he could censor himself. "Thank you." She smiled, seemingly comfortable with the compliment. "This place looks promising. Very local. I discovered it during my first year operating in Monaco. Henry's father was a fisherman who saved enough to open a restaurant. They've maintained their connections with the local fleet." As they settled into their meal, Quinn found the conversation flowing as easily as it had on the yacht. Zara told him more about her childhood with her Sicilian grandmother, whose superstitious nature clashed charmingly with Zara's academic aspirations. "She insisted on putting red thread in my luggage when I left for college," Zara recalled with a fond smile. "For protection against the evil eye, I still keep a red thread in my briefcase." "Does it work?" Quinn asked, amused. "Well, when that ladder broke, I didn't end up in the water." So perhaps Nana knew something after all. Their eyes met across the table, and the memory of that moment, her in his arms, the unexpected connection passed between them. "Tell me something true about yourself," Zara said suddenly. "Something that isn't in your official biography or the business press." Quinn considered the request. "I'm terrified of failure," he said finally. "Not in the motivational poster way that drives success, in the wake up at 3 a.m. way that makes you question every decision." Zara nodded, accepting the confession without judgment. Most people who build something from nothing are. The fear that it could all disappear never quite leaves. "What about you? Something true?" She traced the rim of her wine glass. "I'm lonely sometimes. Not alone, I have friends, colleagues. But there's a specific kind of loneliness that comes from not being truly known." She looked up at him. "I think you understand that one." Quinn did, all too well. The recognition of that shared experience created a moment of connection that felt more intimate than any physical touch. "How is it that we've only had a few conversations, yet I feel like you see parts of me that people who have known me for years don't?" he asked. "Maybe it's because we met under unusual circumstances. Nothing like a broken ladder and a near fall to bypass small talk." Her smile turned thoughtful. "Or maybe it's just that rare thing, genuine compatibility." The candid assessment should have triggered Quinn's usual retreat from emotional territory. Instead, he found himself leaning into it. "I don't do this, you know," he admitted. "Personal dinners, conversations about fear and loneliness. I've built my life around avoiding exactly this kind of vulnerability. I gathered that from your reputation as Monaco's most dedicated bachelor." Zara's expression remained open, curious rather than judgmental. "May I ask why?" Quinn rarely discussed his parents' divorce, but the question deserved honesty. "My parents' marriage imploded spectacularly when I was 12. My father was married to the sea, my mother to her social aspirations. When they finally admitted they had no common ground, they tore each other apart trying to claim the high ground." He took a sip of wine. "I decided early on that business was safer than relationships. And that's worked for you. Until recently." The admission hung between them, significant in its simplicity. Zara considered him. "What changed recently?" Quinn met her gaze directly. "I caught someone falling from a broken ladder." The rest of dinner passed in a pleasant haze of conversation that ranged from childhood memories to favorite books to their shared passion for maritime history. By the time dessert arrived, Quinn realized he hadn't checked his phone once, a minor miracle for a man who typically reviewed emails between courses. "Would you like to walk along the harbor?" he suggested as they finished their coffee. "The view of the old fortifications is particularly good at night." "I'd like that," Zara agreed. They strolled along the waterfront, close but not quite touching, the comfortable silence between them occasionally broken by observations about the boats moored in the harbor or the history of the buildings they passed. "Thank you for dinner," Zara said when they reached a viewpoint overlooking the entire bay. "It was lovely." "Thank you for the company," Quinn replied, surprised by how genuinely he meant it. He turned to face her, struck again by how the moonlight caught the amber tones in her eyes. Without overthinking it, he reached out and took her hand. Her fingers curled around his, warm and certain. "I'd like to see you again," he said. "Not for business." Zara studied him, her expression thoughtful. "I'd like that too, but I should be clear about something, Quinn. I'm not interested in being someone's temporary diversion. If we're going to explore whatever this is between us, I need to know you're open to real possibilities." The directness of her statement was refreshing, if challenging. Quinn appreciated that she didn't play games or leave room for misunderstanding. "I can't promise I'll be good at this," he said honestly. "But I can promise I'll be genuine. Whatever happens between us will be real, not a diversion." She seemed to weigh his words, then nodded. "That's a good start." As they walked back toward the area where his driver waited, Quinn felt a lightness he hadn't experienced in years. For the first time since building his company, he found himself thinking about someone other than Xanders Maritime's next strategic move. When they reached the car, he turned to her. "May I?" he asked, his intent clear. Zara's smile was answer enough. She stepped closer, and Quinn bent to press his lips gently against hers. The kiss was brief but electric, a promise of possibilities neither had anticipated when that yacht ladder broke. "Good night, Quinn," she said softly when they parted. "Good night, Zara." As he watched her car disappear into Monaco's evening traffic, Quinn acknowledged what he'd been avoiding since their first meeting. Zara Richardson had somehow slipped past all his carefully constructed defenses, and he wasn't entirely sure he wanted to rebuild them. The following weeks brought a gradual but unmistakable shift in Quinn's carefully structured life. Between his regular travel schedule and Zara's responsibilities at the Mediterranean office, they managed to see each other only once or twice a week, but each meeting deepened their connection. They discovered a shared love of obscure maritime history, debated the merits of various literary adaptations, and challenged each other's perspectives on everything from business ethics to the perfect pasta sauce. Quinn found himself looking forward to their conversations with an eagerness that both alarmed and exhilarated him. "You seem different, Marcus," his CFO and oldest friend observed after a particularly productive board meeting. "Less." "Less what?" Quinn prompted when Marcus trailed off. "Less isolated," Marcus decided. "Like you've rejoined the land of the living. It suits you." Quinn didn't confirm or deny the observation, but he knew Marcus was right. Something had changed. He still drove himself and his team with the same dedication to excellence, but the sharp edges of his perfectionism had softened slightly. For her part, Zara maintained professional boundaries at work that Quinn respected. During business hours, she was the consummately professional director of Mediterranean operations. Only after hours did she become the woman whose laugh made his chest tighten and whose perspective on the world continually surprised him. 3 weeks after their dinner in Monaco, Quinn invited Zara to join him for a weekend on the yacht. It was a significant step. His vessel was his sanctuary, rarely shared with anyone outside of business necessity. "Just us?" she asked when he extended the invitation. "A skeleton crew for navigation and basic service," he clarified. "But otherwise, yes, just us." Zara smiled. "I'd like that, though I'm bringing my own ladder inspection kit this time." They set sail on a Friday afternoon, heading east along the coast toward the Italian border. Once they anchored in a secluded cove, Quinn gave Zara a proper tour of the Helios Dream, something they hadn't had time for during the Rossi meeting. "This is magnificent," she said as they reached the upper deck observation area. "Though I can't help calculating the operational costs of maintaining this beauty," Quinn laughed. "Once a logistics expert, always a logistics expert. It's not the most economical vessel, I admit, but it serves its purpose." "Which is solitude mainly, or it was." He looked at her. "I'm finding I value that less than I used to." Zara's expression softened. She stepped closer and rested her hand on his chest. "Are you sure about that? You've built your life around independence. It's a significant change." "I'm not sure about much these days," Quinn admitted, covering her hand with his own. "Except that when I'm with you, I feel more like myself than I do alone. That's new for me." The honesty of his statement seemed to touch her. Zara rose up on her toes and kissed him, a gentle exploration that quickly deepened into something more urgent. Quinn pulled her closer, surrendering to the connection that had been building between them since that first moment of catching her. Later, as they lay in his stateroom, the gentle rocking of the yacht creating a cocoon of intimacy around them, Quinn traced lazy patterns on Zara's bare shoulder. "Tell me something else I don't know about you," he requested, continuing their habit of sharing truths. Zara was quiet for a moment. "I almost didn't take the job with Xanders Maritime," she finally said. "I had another offer from a non-profit focused on sustainable fishing practices. Less money, more meaning, at least on paper. What changed your mind?" "I realized I could potentially have more impact from inside a major corporation than from outside." She shifted to look at him. "The fishing communities I worked with in Sicily were struggling against the tide of commercial shipping. I thought perhaps I could help create more balanced practices from within the industry." Quinn nodded thoughtfully. "And have you found that to be true?" "It's too early to tell. But the Mediterranean reorganization gave me the opportunity to implement some of the community engagement practices I developed in Sicily." She smiled slightly. "The local fishermen are already reporting better relations with our vessels." "I hadn't considered that aspect," Quinn admitted. "But it makes strategic sense. Community goodwill is valuable." "It's more than strategy," Zara said, a hint of challenge in her voice. "It's about recognizing that businesses exist within communities, not separate from them." Quinn recognized the passion behind her words. "You're right. It's something Xanders Maritime could improve upon." He hesitated. "Perhaps you could develop a more comprehensive approach for all our regions." Her eyes widened slightly. "You're serious?" "Completely. Consider it an official expansion of your responsibilities." "With appropriate compensation adjustment, of course," Zara laughed. "Only you would propose a promotion in bed." "Is that inappropriate?" Quinn asked, suddenly concerned he'd crossed a professional line. "It's very you." She kissed him lightly. "And yes, I'd be interested in developing that initiative. But let's discuss the details when we're back in the office, shall we?" The rest of the weekend passed in a blend of intimate conversations, shared meals on the deck, and peaceful silences as they watched the Mediterranean sunset from the yacht's bow. Quinn found himself more relaxed than he could remember being in years, the constant pressure of leadership temporarily eased by Zara's presence. Sunday evening arrived too quickly. As they prepared to return to Monaco, Quinn found himself reluctant to end their time together. "When do you leave for the Asian operations review?" Zara asked as they watched the coastline approach. "Tomorrow afternoon. 10 days, possibly 2 weeks," Quinn frowned. "Longer than I'd like, given recent developments. We'll manage," she assured him. "I have the Marseille Port Authority meetings this week anyway. I'll call you," he promised, pulling her close. "And I'd like to see you as soon as I get back." Zara smiled up at him. "I'd like that too." As they docked in Monaco and prepared to part ways, Quinn felt an unfamiliar tightness in his chest. He'd never minded business travel before, had even welcomed it as an escape from social obligations. Now, the thought of 2 weeks away from Zara seemed like an unwelcome interruption. "Be safe," she said as they stood on the marina walkway. "Asian shipping lanes can be treacherous this time of year." "I've navigated them before," he assured her, "but I appreciate the concern." Their goodbye kiss contained a promise that neither had yet put into words, that whatever was growing between them deserved the chance to flourish. As Quinn watched Zara walk away, he acknowledged a truth he'd been avoiding. He was falling in love with her. The realization should have terrified him, should have triggered all his well-established defenses against emotional entanglement. Instead, he felt an unexpected sense of rightness, as if a missing piece had finally clicked into place. The Asian operations review proved more complex than anticipated. Equipment issues at the Singapore terminal, customs disputes in Indonesia, and personnel problems in the Philippines extended Quinn's trip well beyond the original timeline. 3 weeks after leaving Monaco, he was still troubleshooting issues in Manila when a call came from Marcus. "We have a situation with the Mediterranean Community Engagement Initiative," his CFO said without preamble. Quinn frowned. "What kind of situation?" "The board is pushing back. Henderson and Whitfield are leading the charge, claiming it's an unnecessary expense that won't show ROI." "It's not just about ROI," Quinn replied, irritation clear in his voice. "It's about sustainable operations and community relations." "I know that, and you know that," Marcus said patiently, "but the old guard sees it as feel-good spending. They're putting pressure on Zara to justify every proposed expenditure with hard numbers." Quinn's irritation deepened. "Put her on the phone." "She's not here." "She's in Sicily, meeting with some of the fishing cooperatives to develop the pilot program." "Then connect me to her there." "That's the other thing," Marcus said carefully. "She's apparently gone off-grid for a few days. Something about needing to join an actual fishing expedition to understand current challenges. Her assistant says she'll be back in communication range tomorrow." Quinn pinched the bridge of his nose. He admired Zara's hands-on approach, but her timing was problematic. "Tell the board I fully support the initiative and will address their concerns when I return." He paused. "And Marcus, make sure Zara knows she has my backing on this." "Will do, and Quinn, you might want to wrap things up here soon. The longer you're both away, the more the board feels entitled to meddle." After hanging up, Quinn stared out the hotel window at Manila's skyline. He'd built Xanders Maritime to be more than just a profit-generating machine. Yes, financial success was essential, but so was responsible operation. Zara's initiative aligned perfectly with his own deeper values he sometimes let get overshadowed by quarterly targets and growth metrics. He made a decision. The remaining issues in Manila could be handled by the regional director. Quinn needed to get back to Monaco to support Zara's work, and if he was honest with himself, because 4 weeks without seeing her was far too long. By the time Quinn's plane landed in Nice, Zara had returned from Sicily and was in the midst of a contentious meeting with the board's executive committee. He went directly to Xanders Maritime's Monaco headquarters, not even stopping to drop his luggage at his apartment. He could hear the raised voices from the hallway as he approached the main conference room. "Simply cannot justify this level of investment in goodwill projects," Henderson was saying, his tone dismissive. "Xanders Maritime is not a charity." "With respect, Mr. Henderson," came Zara's measured response. "This is not charity. It's strategic community integration that will reduce operational friction, improve local labor relations, and potentially avoid costly regulatory interventions. Quinn pushed open the door and all heads turned toward him. "Quinn," Henderson greeted him with barely concealed relief. "Good of you to join us. We were just discussing Miss Richardson's ambitious proposals." "I'm aware of the proposals," Quinn said coolly, setting his briefcase down. "I approved them before I left for Asia." He moved to stand beside Zara, noting the subtle tension in her posture and the determined set of her jaw. Their eyes met briefly, a silent communication of support and shared purpose that didn't go unnoticed by the board members present. The Mediterranean Community Engagement Initiative represents exactly the kind of forward-thinking approach that has made Xanders Maritime an industry leader, Quinn continued. Miss Richardson has identified an opportunity to transform potential adversarial relationships into collaborative ones. That's not just good ethics, it's good business. For the next hour, Quinn and Zara presented a united front, addressing the committee's concerns with a combination of hard data and strategic vision. As the meeting concluded, even Henderson grudgingly acknowledged the potential merit of a pilot program. "We'll expect comprehensive metrics on the initial implementation," he stipulated as the board members filed out. "Of course," Zara agreed smoothly. Transparency is a cornerstone of the initiative. When the room finally emptied, leaving them alone, Quinn turned to Zara with a mixture of professional admiration and personal longing. "That was impressive," he said. "You held your ground against some of the most stubborn executives in the industry." "I had good material to work with," she replied with a small smile, "and unexpected reinforcements. I thought you weren't due back until next week." "Plans changed." Quinn stepped closer. "I heard you were having to defend our initiative single-handedly. That wasn't acceptable." "Our initiative?" Zara raised an eyebrow. "I like the sound of that." "It is ours," he confirmed. "Your expertise and my resources working toward something meaningful." He hesitated. "I've missed you, Zara." "More than I anticipated." Her professional composure softened. "I missed you too. Sicily wasn't the same without someone to debate the merits of automated versus traditional fishing methods." Quinn laughed, then grew serious again. "Have dinner with me tonight. I want to hear everything about your time with the fishing cooperatives." "I'd like that," she agreed. "Though I should warn you, I smell faintly of sardines despite multiple showers. I'll take my chances." That evening, over dinner at Quinn's penthouse apartment overlooking the harbor, they reconnected. Zara shared her experiences with the Sicilian fishermen, the challenges they faced, the innovations they'd developed, and the potential partnerships she envisioned with Xanders Maritime. "They're not looking for handouts," she explained passionately. "They want fair access to shipping lanes, reasonable schedules that don't disrupt traditional fishing grounds, and perhaps some technological support to make their operations more sustainable." Quinn listened, captivated not just by the concepts, but by Zara herself, the way her eyes lit up when discussing community impact, the elegant gestures that emphasized key points, the clear intelligence behind every proposal. "I knew you were exceptional when I hired you," he said when she paused for breath, "but I had no idea just how exceptional." Zara gave him a curious look. "You didn't hire me, remember? Your HR department did." "Best decision they ever made," Quinn acknowledged. "Though I'm beginning to think it was more than coincidence." "What do you mean?" He reached across the table to take her hand. "I don't typically believe in fate or destiny. But the way we met, that broken ladder, that moment of connection, sometimes I wonder if there wasn't something bigger at work." Zara's expression softened. "My grandmother would say it was destiny. She believed some people were meant to find each other, no matter the circumstances." "And what do you believe?" I believe that when the right people meet at the right time, extraordinary things can happen. She squeezed his hand. Whether by chance or destiny doesn't matter as much as what we do with the opportunity. Later, as they stood on his balcony watching the lights of ships moving through the harbor, Quinn wrapped his arms around Zara from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Move in with me," he said quietly. Zara turned in his arms, surprise evident in her expression. "That's unexpected." "Is it?" Quinn challenged gently. "We've spent nearly every free moment together for months. When I'm away, all I think about is getting back to you. When you were in Sicily, I cut short an important operations review because I couldn't stand being apart any longer. It's a big step, Quinn. Especially for someone who's valued his independence as much as you have." "I know." He met her gaze steadily. "But I'm discovering that some things are worth more than independence. You're teaching me that there's strength in connection, not just in solitude." Zara studied him, her amber eyes searching his face. "Are you sure? Really sure? Because I don't want to disrupt your life only to have you realize you prefer your bachelor existence after all." Quinn cupped her face gently. "Zara Richardson, you've already disrupted my life in the best possible way. From the moment I caught you on that yacht ladder, nothing has been the same, and I don't want it to go back to the way it was." A slow smile spread across her face. "In that case, yes, I'll move in with you." The kiss that followed sealed their agreement, a promise of shared futures and new beginnings. The transition wasn't without challenges. Quinn had lived alone for so long that sharing space required adjustment. Zara's collection of books and artifacts from her global travels gradually found homes among his minimalist decor. Her morning routine of coffee and reading on the balcony became a cherished ritual that Quinn eventually joined, finding unexpected pleasure in starting the day with conversation rather than immediate work. Professionally, they maintained appropriate boundaries at the office, though the entire executive team quickly recognized that their dynamic had shifted. Far from undermining Zara's authority, her relationship with Quinn seemed to enhance her effectiveness, giving her the confidence to challenge established practices when necessary, while maintaining respect for the company's core values. The Mediterranean Community Engagement Initiative launched successfully, first in Sicily, and then expanding to coastal communities in Greece, Spain, and southern France. Initial results exceeded even Zara's optimistic projections, with reduced port conflicts, improved local relations, and positive media coverage that enhanced Xanders Maritime's reputation as an industry innovator. 6 months after Zara moved in, Quinn found himself preparing for another kind of voyage, one he'd never anticipated taking. On a clear spring evening, he invited her for a sail on a smaller yacht he rarely used, a sleek 30-foot vessel perfect for a couple to handle without crew. "Where are we headed?" Zara asked as they cast off from the marina. "Just along the coast," Quinn replied, adjusting the sail. "There's a cove I want to show you." As they sailed into the sunset, Quinn felt a calm certainty that contrasted sharply with the careful isolation he'd maintained for so many years. When they reached the secluded cove, he anchored the yacht and suggested a glass of wine on the forward deck. "It's beautiful here," Zara observed, taking in the rugged coastline and the first stars appearing in the darkening sky. "How did you find this spot?" "My father brought me here once," Quinn said, pouring their wine. "One of the few good memories I have from after the divorce. He said it was a place to gain perspective when life got complicated." Zara sipped her wine thoughtfully. "And do you need perspective now?" "The opposite, actually." Quinn set his glass down. "For the first time in my life, I feel like I have complete clarity." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. Zara's eyes widened as he opened it to reveal a platinum ring set with a single perfect diamond flanked by smaller stones the exact amber color of her eyes. "I had this made specifically for you," Quinn said, his voice steady despite the rapid beating of his heart. "The center stone represents our unexpected beginning, that moment of catching you when you fell. The amber stones represent all the moments since, the way you've brought warmth and purpose into my life in ways I never anticipated." He took her hand. "Zara Richardson, you've taught me that the right connection doesn't diminish independence, it enhances it. You've shown me that sharing my life doesn't mean losing myself, but rather finding parts of myself I didn't know were missing." He took a breath. "Will you marry me?" Tears glistened in Zara's eyes as she looked from the ring to his face. "Are you absolutely certain, Quinn Xanders?" "Because this is one yacht ladder I won't let you climb back up." Quinn laughed, emotion making his voice rough. "I've never been more certain of anything. The day that yacht ladder broke was the luckiest day of my life." "In that case," Zara said, her smile radiant through her tears, "yes. Absolutely yes." As he slipped the ring onto her finger and pulled her into his arms, Quinn marveled at how completely his life had transformed in less than a year. From dedicated bachelor to man in love, from solitary CEO to half of a partnership that strengthened rather than weakened him. Their engagement made headlines in the business press. "Maritime mogul's bachelor status sinks" was a particular favorite, but Quinn found he didn't mind the attention. For the first time, he was proud to have his personal life associated with his professional one, because Zara represented the best of both worlds. The wedding took place 4 months later on the deck of the Helios Dream, anchored in the same cove where Quinn had proposed. The ceremony was intimate, just 30 guests including key executives, Zara's close friends, and a few of the Sicilian fishermen who had become important allies in their community initiative. "I never thought I'd see this day," Marcus commented during the reception, clapping Quinn on the shoulder. "You were the most confirmed bachelor in Monaco." "Plans change," Quinn replied, his eyes finding Zara across the deck where she was laughing with some of her team members. "Sometimes for the better." "She's remarkable," Marcus observed. "The board is already talking about expanding her initiative globally." Henderson actually used the words visionary approach yesterday, which might be a first from him. Quinn nodded, pride evident in his expression. "She's transformed more than just our community relations." Later, as the celebration continued and the Mediterranean sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and amber, Quinn found a quiet moment alone with his new wife at the yacht's bow. "Happy?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Completely," Zara confirmed, leaning back against him. "Though I'm still expecting to wake up and find this was all an elaborate dream that started when that yacht ladder broke." "If it's a dream, we're sharing it," Quinn murmured against her hair, "and I have no intention of waking up." As they stood together watching the horizon, Quinn reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. He had built Xanders Maritime through careful planning and strategic vision, always believing that personal entanglements were liabilities rather than assets. How wrong he had been. In Zara, he had found not a liability but a partner who strengthened him, challenged him, and completed him in ways he hadn't known were possible. The broken yacht ladder that brought them together had indeed broken his bachelor life, not through destruction, but through transformation. And as the stars appeared one by one above the Mediterranean, Quinn Xanders held his wife close and gave silent thanks for broken ladders, unexpected falls, and the extraordinary woman who had taught him that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from standing alone, but from catching someone when they fall and allowing yourself to fall in return. 1 year after their wedding, Quinn and Zara stood together on the observation deck of the newly commissioned vessel that represented the culmination of their shared vision. The Sustainable Horizon wasn't just Xanders Maritime's newest ship. It was a floating demonstration of how commercial shipping could coexist harmoniously with local fishing communities and marine ecosystems. "She's magnificent," Zara said, admiring the sleek lines of the vessel equipped with the latest in eco-friendly technology. "Better than we envisioned." "Much like us," Quinn observed, slipping his arm around her waist. The past year had brought both professional triumphs and personal joys. Zara's community engagement initiative had expanded globally, transforming Xanders Maritime's relationships with coastal populations across 4 continents. Quinn had embraced a more balanced approach to leadership, delegating more effectively, and even occasionally taking weekends completely off a concept that would have been unthinkable before Zara entered his life. "The captain says we're ready for the christening ceremony," Quinn noted, checking his watch. "The dignitaries are assembling on the main deck." Zara nodded but made no move to leave their private moment. "Before we go down there, I have something to tell you." Quinn turned to face her, noting a particular glow in her expression that he'd never seen before. "What is it?" "Our family is expanding," she said, taking his hand and placing it gently on her stomach. "Not just Xanders Maritime, but the Xanders family. I'm pregnant, Quinn." For a moment he stood completely still, processing her words. Then a smile unlike any Zara had ever seen transformed his face, part wonder, part joy, part absolute terror. "A baby," he whispered, his voice uncharacteristically unsteady. "Due in about 7 months, she confirmed. "I wanted to be sure before I told you." Quinn pulled her into a gentle embrace, mindful now of the precious life she carried. "I never thought. We talked about it as a possibility someday, but I never imagined how it would feel to actually." "I know," Zara said, understanding his inability to find words for the emotion overwhelming him. "It's rather overwhelming, isn't it? In the best possible way." Quinn nodded, his throat tight with emotion. "When did you find out?" "3 days ago. I wanted to tell you at the perfect moment. And this seemed fitting, christening our new ship that represents our shared vision, while also celebrating the new life we've created together." As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms with the Mediterranean stretching endlessly before them, Quinn marveled at how completely his life had transformed in just 2 years. From the moment he'd caught Zara falling from that broken yacht ladder, every certainty he'd built his life around had been challenged and ultimately replaced with deeper, more meaningful truths. He had believed isolation was strength. Zara had shown him the power of connection. He had valued independence above all. Now he cherished interdependence. He had built walls to protect himself from the pain his parents' failed marriage had caused. Zara had helped him build bridges instead. And now, a child, the ultimate leap of faith, the most profound commitment to believing in love's endurance despite life's uncertainties. "Are you ready for this?" Zara asked, searching his face. "It's a different kind of adventure than running a global shipping empire." Quinn placed his hand gently on her stomach again, imagining the tiny life growing within. "I'm terrified," he admitted with an honesty that only Zara ever witnessed, "but also more ready than I've ever been for anything." He kissed her tenderly, pouring into the gesture all the love and gratitude he felt for this extraordinary woman who had transformed his life. "We should get to the ceremony," Zara said when they finally parted. "They can't christen the ship without us." Quinn nodded, but held her in place for one more moment. "Zara Xanders, you are the greatest blessing of my life. When that ladder broke and you fell into my arms, I had no idea I was catching my future, my heart, and now the mother of my child." "That's quite poetic for a shipping magnate," she teased, though her eyes shone with emotion. "You bring out unexpected qualities in me," Quinn replied with a smile. "It's part of your charm." Hand in hand, they made their way to the main deck, where guests and dignitaries waited for the christening ceremony. As Quinn watched Zara break the ceremonial bottle against the hull of the Sustainable Horizon, officially launching their newest vessel, he reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. A broken ladder, an unexpected catch. A connection neither had been looking for, but both had needed more than they knew, sometimes. Quinn thought as applause erupted around them. The most important journeys aren't mapped on any chart. And sometimes, the most valuable cargo isn't recorded in any manifest, but carried safely in the heart. As Zara returned to his side, her hand finding his amid the celebration, Quinn Xanders, once Monaco's most dedicated bachelor, now devoted husband, and soon-to-be father, knew with absolute certainty that no business success could ever compare to the joy of this unexpected voyage they had embarked on together. And he wouldn't trade it for all the shipping empires in the world.